The Department of Public Health and Human Services is pleased to bring you Aging Horizons. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, fraud, legal issues, veterans benefits, and caregiving. Aging Horizons is a program dedicated to inform and prepare Montanans on these timely issues, making a difference to you and your loved ones. Here now is today's program host.
Today on Aging Horizons, we'll be speaking with Susan Gobbs. She's a contract attorney with the Department of Public Health and Human Services. We'll be talking about estate planning, what it is, and why you should consider doing it in this global pandemic. We'll be talking about all the important forms, which ones you may want to consider doing now, and why they're important. So make sure you stay tuned to Today on Aging Horizons.
Final call from Flight 566.
Hello, gentlemen. May I see your Montana Real IDs?
IDs? Why, I'm Captain Meriwether Lewis.
And I'm Captain William Clark.
Hang on, I see more than one William Clark.
It's the real me, I promise.
Discover more at mtrealid.gov. Available now.
Montana Real ID. It's the real me.
And me.
I have so many questions about power of attorney.
Well, some powers of attorney are for finances and others are for healthcare decisions.
A power of attorney designates an agent who would make decisions on your behalf.
While making a power of attorney, you have the ability to control your agent's power.
You also have the ability to decide when that POA would take effect.
Wait, am I giving away all my rights?
Power of attorney isn't a license to make any decision for you, just those that you've specified.
Your agent should be somebody that's working in your best interest, but it should also be somebody that you would trust.
What if they try to abuse their power?
Protective measures like third-party accounting, secondary signatures, defined spending and gifting limits can help protect against financial exploitation. An agent's powers can always be limited by a customized power of attorney, and they can be revoked by you or the court if the power of attorney is abused.
So carefully drafted estate planning documents can help ensure that your finances are monitored, but not abused.
If you or someone you know is being exploited, please report to Aging Services Bureau at 844-277-9300 or the Legal Service Developer at 1-800-332-2272. This message sponsored by the DPHHS Aging Service Bureau.
I was angry and upset when the doctor told me I have diabetes. I just didn't want to deal with it, the needles and the diet restrictions. But after I started to learn about it, those feelings changed. I was at risk for a heart attack caused by high blood sugar. That got my attention. I started watching my diet and making sure I got enough exercise every day. I want to be around for my grandkids, and now that I know what to do, it seems like a small price to pay.
Ask your doctor about diabetes education or visit montana211.org.
Welcome to Aging Horizons, brought to you by the Department of Public Health and Human Services. I'm your host, Katie Lovell, and today we're speaking with Susan Gobbs, who's a contract attorney with the Department of Public Health and Human Services. Susan, thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure.
So today we're going to talk about something that you and I talk about on almost a daily basis, and that's estate planning. So in general, when someone says the phrase estate planning, what do they mean?
Well, it means different things to different people. For us, it means the documents you need before your death. That would be durable powers of attorney. Documents that will help your family after your death, like a will, tangible personal property list, perhaps some deed work. So I like to think of it as a two-phase sort of process. The documents you need before your death, the documents your family needs after your death.
And estate planning can be all sorts of things. It's not just for someone who's in those last days, weeks of their life.
Exactly. I am particularly passionate about the durable powers of attorney. We have two in Montana. One is financial, one is for health care. Anybody who is 18 years or older should have both of those documents, because you never know when you might be in a car accident. You might fall ill and be unable to make certain decisions for yourself, and absent those documents, there's nobody who has a legal right to make those decisions for you.
And the process of estate planning is sort of a long one. It can be a long journey for some people, and there's that initial conversation that I think people can start having both with themselves and with their families about, you know, what does this even mean? Sort of what are my wishes? How do you suggest that people start thinking about those?
Well, I think that this is always about conversations. It's about conversations and it's about trust. And we always tell individuals you need to choose people to be your agents that you trust, that you think will do what you want to have done. And this can be a very difficult situation because when you're talking about a power of attorney, you're talking about giving somebody control over healthcare decisions and financial decisions while you're still alive. And that's really difficult for people because it signifies a loss of control. It makes people believe that somebody can come in and take their stuff immediately, which is not true. And so it's a very, very difficult process for most families, but I think it begins like it should with most conversations around the kitchen table or maybe during COVID over FaceTime, and talking about what it is that you want and what you don't want. These documents can be very general or they can be very specific. And particularly in light of COVID, we're seeing more and more people talk about ventilators and being on a ventilator or being on a feeding tube, or what do they want? Do they want to be resuscitated? And these are very personal decisions and they're easily misunderstood. So consequently, if you can have conversations with the people in your life that you trust, you'll feel better and so will they. I often tell seniors, this isn't so much for you, it's for your family. You will make it easier for your children or for your spouse if they know they're doing what you would want to have done.
Absolutely, yeah. Those conversations ahead of time save so much heartache in those moments that are really crisis moments of crisis. And if you've had those conversations ahead of time, it really just helps your family so much.
Right.
When you start to think about estate planning, what sort of things do you need to start gathering? What sort of information will you need to start looking at in your world?
Right. You need to be able to to know who you want to be your agent. That's the person under the powers of attorney that would have the ability to act for you. You need to know who you want to leave your things to. I talk about a will, and there's many different kinds of things that can be put in a will. We do very simple wills, there's very complicated wills, there are trusts, there are lots of different ways to plan. But the main thing is, how do you want your belongings distributed, whether it's cash, whether it's property, whether it's Great Aunt Sadie's gravy ladle. How is it that you want the things that you leave behind to be distributed? And some people don't care. Some people are like, I leave it all to my spouse and they can figure it out. Some people care a lot. Sometimes I have to caution clients to not try to direct traffic from the grave, because a lot of times they'll say, I want this and this and this, and I'm like, but you're not going to be here and you don't get to control this part of your legacy.
Sure. And I think just practically too, you'll need to get copies of deeds. What do you own, where is it located,
right.
How do you own it, is it joint tenants, is it tenants in common,
right.
And so some important partners in the estate planning process would be things like the clerk and recorder's office.
Right. Anytime you're talking about real estate, it is very, very important to know whether it's held in joint tenants with right of survivorship, is it tenants in common, have the deeds even been transferred. A lot of times we'll have people come in and their spouse will have died and yet they're still on the property. And that's a relatively easy process to do an affidavit of death and have that person off the property, but so often people don't do it. And we will sometimes see situations where somebody has property but they don't own it, and there might be 2 probates that need to take place before they actually own the property they're living on. And I see that a lot in rural Montana.
Sure, absolutely. So just really getting an idea of what is in your estate in general.
Right.
When we come back, I want to talk about let's split up those documents, those that we do before to take care of us while we're alive, and then ones we do after death. So we're going to go into more detail. So make sure you stay tuned with us, because we're going to go over those documents first that you're going to need to help you while you're alive. Those are the things like the powers of attorney and the declaration of homestead. So we're going to go into a little bit of detail on those. So make sure you stay tuned to today's Aging Horizons.
I was outside working on some equipment, nothing too strenuous. I started sweating and feeling out of breath.
When he felt pressure in his chest and aching in his arms, I knew we had to call 911.
First responders were there before we knew it. 38 minutes later, the doctors had restored the blood flow to my heart.
Now we know dialing 911 saved his life.
Your life is on the line.
This message sponsored by Mission Lifeline Montana.
I take care of my wife at home. When I found out training was available, I said, sign me up. It's made a huge difference.
When my husband was injured at work, it was life-altering. The class has taught me that it's okay to grieve, to ask for help, and to better cope as a caregiver.
My dad lives 4 hours away, and the Powerful Tools class has taught me that it's okay to ask for help. I highly recommend them.
To find out about this course for caregivers, go to powerfultoolsforcaregivers.org.
It's amazing the difference a little training can make.
Out here, we love our animals, from the wildlife to the livestock. Inside, it's the same. They're just like family. We keep them happy and healthy, most of the time. Secondhand smoke puts pets at risk for cancer, feline lymphoma, vomiting, increases the risk of tumors and lung cancer, even causes eye and skin disease. Secondhand smoke puts your pet's life at risk.
I think the most pleasant surprise when we turned 65 and signed up for Medicare Part B was finding out about our Welcome to Medicare preventive visit.
It was free, and it gave us the opportunity to visit with our doctors and establish a plan for our health going forward.
They reviewed our medical history, measured our height, weight, blood pressure, and counseled us on other risk factors.
To learn more about Medicare's free or low-cost preventive and wellness benefits, call your local SHIP counselor at 800-551-3191. I mentioned it's free, right?
Twice.
Welcome back to Aging Horizons. Today we're speaking with Susan Gobbs, who's a contract attorney for the Department of Public Health and Human Services, and we're talking all about estate planning. So Susan, we sort of broke up the estate planning forms that people might want to consider doing into those that help you while you're still alive and those that have to help you after death. So I think the most important ones, the ones that we talk about the most, are those durable powers of attorney, and there are two. So let's talk about the durable power of attorney for financial first.
Okay, so the durable power of attorney for financial, you appoint an agent. That agent has the ability to make certain financial decisions on your behalf. You can insert language that they can't sell property without two signatures. There's various ways you can handle it, but the whole idea is, think about being in a coma. You can't pay your bills, you can't cash your checks, you can't do anything, pay your taxes, do any of the stuff you normally need to do. This agent would then be able to step into your shoes and conduct business on your behalf, not to line their pockets, but on your behalf when you're unable to do so.
And that power of attorney can become effective immediately, at a later date, for a specified amount of time, correct?
Exactly. You can get a power of attorney that's for a very specific purpose. For example, I did a power of attorney several years ago to allow somebody to buy a house that I was purchasing in my absence because we had a death in the family. Very specific, very one transaction, specific time frame, but you can have them as broad or as narrow as you want to be. We recommend generally that you have one that goes into effect immediately, because again, it can be incredibly difficult to determine when someone becomes incapable of making these decisions. The coma is pretty easy, but a lot of people it's not that clear cut, and doctors are reluctant to put into writing that you're no longer able to manage your affairs and make those decisions.
And one of the things that we, I think always worry about with a financial power of attorney is the capacity for it to be used for evil. And there are some safeguards that you can put in place. Can we talk about a few of those?
Sure. Like I said, special instructions. You can't spend more than X dollars without having somebody else looking over your shoulder. We insert language pretty frequently that says that your agent has to keep an accounting, and they have to produce that accounting whenever it's requested by other members of the family or Adult Protective Services or someone else of that nature. You also have the ability to revoke a power of attorney. You have to do that in writing. You have to present it to the agent as well as to the entities that perhaps have copies of your power of attorney. So if someone is starting to use it in an inappropriate manner, you can revoke that. and make that person no longer your agent. And we have seen that. That sometimes does happen.
I think probably the biggest safeguard of all is really picking someone that you trust too, someone that you would trust with your wallet, your keys, and your social security card.
Exactly, and trust is the biggest issue. And we say to folks, if you don't trust this person, it doesn't matter if they're your oldest child. It does not matter what their relationship is. That's not the important part. It's whether you trust them to do with your things, with your money, and with your body, what you yourself would do.
Sure. Let's talk about that durable power of attorney for healthcare. Especially right now, this is an incredibly important document to have lined out ahead of needing it.
Right, and there's various models. The financial power of attorney is what we refer to as a statutory form. The power of attorney for healthcare, there's all sorts of copies and different versions floating around. But basically, again, you're in a position to not make a decision. You're unconscious, you're, where you cannot absolutely make this decision, and you're saying to somebody else, you can make certain healthcare decisions. Now, these again can be very, very specific, and it can talk about things like feeding tubes, putting people on respirators, talk about whether or not you want members of the clergy to come and pray over you for a certain amount of time. Do you, want to be resuscitated? All those sort of very technical things that sometimes I think it's really hard. And I think it's really, really hard conversation, particularly for the younger generation, because nobody wants to think about mom and dad dying.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to have to, for lack of a better term, pull the plug. And for most people, that's not how their life ends. But if you know that you don't want to be resuscitated, if you know you don't want to be put on a ventilator, which is really important given in COVID, we see a lot of people on ventilators.
Sure.
You need to share that with your family, and that can be included in your document.
Wonderful. And those can also be made effective immediately or at a later date.
Exactly.
The last document that we encourage people to do that helps them while they're alive is that Declaration of Homestead, and that's a pretty straightforward document. What does that one do?
That one protects your homestead, the place you live, and it does not have to be a house. It can be a mobile home parked in a mobile home park, or it can even be a motor home if that is your primary residence, from an unsecured debt up to $250,000. So it doesn't protect against a mortgage or a contractor's lien or a reverse mortgage. But say you get in a car wreck and you are at fault and you get sued. This is an ability to protect at least a portion of your home from being foreclosed on because you owe that debt. So it's a really important document. It's easy to do. I suggest that everyone should have one on their home, because it's just another safeguard. You said it's the last document. I'm going to correct you. There's two other documents that we generally work with people. There is something called a living will, and there is a living will appointment.
Sure.
Now, the living will is a document that says, I direct my medical personnel to cease medical treatment if it appears that it's not necessary, to prolong my life. I don't want to stay alive for 14 years if I don't want to be there. The living will appointment varies from that living will in that you're appointing someone, an agent, to work with the medical professionals to determine how you want your last illness handled. You do one or the other, you don't do both. And for most people, the living will doesn't come into play because we very seldom know when someone's last illness is, but is again another safeguard. Those can be registered in the living will registry, which is at the Attorney General's office. That means if you're traveling in Florida, you get in a horrific accident, they can go to the Montana registry and see if you have left instructions as to how you want your last illness to be handled.
Important clarification. Thank you. I forgot those documents. When we return, we're going to be talking about those documents that help you after death, so make sure you stay tuned.
Montana's fighting COVID-19. And if we want to stay open, we should all listen to the experts and mask up, especially when we can't social distance.
We want our students in class and sports back this fall, but we've got work to do. One proven path to slow COVID-19 is to mask up.
We're wearing our masks.
And our players are too.
I'm wearing my mask to protect you.
Will you wear yours to protect me?
Mask up, Montana.
Every 65 seconds, someone is affected with Alzheimer's or other dementias. Many become isolated at a time when help is most needed. If you or someone you love is affected, help is available, both for people with memory loss and their caregivers. Memory loss can feel frightening, but you are not alone. Call the free 24/7 Alzheimer's Association helpline, 800-272-3900, for guidance and support.
Elder abuse is a growing problem, and it's happening right here in our Montana communities. At least 1 in 10 older adults are victims of physical or emotional abuse, financial exploitation, or neglect. To get help or report elder abuse, call your local area agency on aging or Adult Protective Services at 1-844-277-9300. This is Bill. He just received his new Medicare card and is following some simple rules to protect himself from fraud. He knows to never give out his Medicare, Social Security, or bank number over the phone. And this is Nancy. She knows that to detect any problems, she always reads her Medicare summary notice or Medicare Advantage EOB to make sure the billing is correct. Both Bill and Nancy know that anything suspicious can be reported to Montana SMP at 1-800-551-3191.
Welcome back to Aging Horizons. Today we're speaking with Susan Gobbs, who's a contract attorney with the Department of Public Health and Human Services, and we're talking all about estate planning. So Susan, we went through those important documents that help you while you're alive, and now let's cover the documents that assist your family after you've passed away. And the first of them is the Revocable Transfer on Death Deed, or the TOD as we refer to it in our office. What does that document do?
This document is a new document that replaces a beneficiary deed. And it is one of several different ways that you can leave your real property to someone. A transfer on death deed simply is a deed that you execute prior to your death. It says, when I die, I want my property to go to this person or this person, and you designate whether it's joint tenants with right of survivorship, tenants in common. Again, it's something that can be revoked. You can change your mind about who you want to leave your property to. It is not the only way to leave real estate in Montana, and there are pros and cons with the TODD versus leaving property in a, for example, in a will. But it's very easily done, but you need to do this prior to your death. It's registered with the clerk and recorder's office prior to your death.
Sure. If someone has done a previous beneficiary deed, do they need to do a new transfer on death deed?
They do not.
Okay.
Beneficiary deeds that were executed before October the 1st of 2019 are still valid.
Okay.
But if you wanted to revoke, you would need to revoke the beneficiary deed. And that's a little bit different revocation.
Sure. And after if you receive property through a revocable transfer on death deed, you would file an affidavit of death to change that property into your name?
Right. You would have to go and provide proof to the clerk and recorder's office in the form of a death certificate and a affidavit of death that would show them that you were in fact the rightful heir, and then they would transfer the deed into your name.
Sure, that's a really popular document in our office. People are
is.
really looking to avoid probates. An important document. Let's talk about the will. And I think when people think about estate planning, that's sometimes the only document that they think about doing, or one of the ones that are the most important. So what does a will do?
A will directs how you want your estate, which is your things, to be distributed. Now, lots of people die without a will. That's called intestate, and there is a specific protocol under state law to how you handle something that if somebody doesn't have a will. I refer to a will as a wish list. I wish to give these things to people after my death. Well, you may or may not own those things when you die. So that's where the wishing part comes in. So it's really important if you, for example, are in a second marriage and you have kids that are not in common. It's very important that you really think about who it is that ultimately you want to have your property. And a lot of times what we will see is someone in a second or subsequent marriage will leave everything to the spouse, and then the spouse leaves it all to their kids, and the original person's children do not inherit.
Sure.
So this can get very, very complicated. The wills we do are really simple, and I want to clarify that the stuff that we have on our website, which we'll talk about in a minute, is very, very simple. We are not designed to do everybody's will, and if you have a considerable estate, you should not be looking to use the wills and other documents we have on the website.
Sure. When, as part of the will, you can do what's called a tangible personal property list. And what kind of property do you put on a tangible property list?
Things that you care about. If you have someone who's very musical in the family, you want to make sure they get the piano. You can put your vehicles on there. You can put the family silver, the gun collection. I think the gun collection is really important for a lot of families. So who gets the 2020 and who gets the 357 Magnum, and you go through all this stuff. Now, what I like about a tangible personal property list is that is something that you can amend, and you can take things off and you can put things on. And we always caution people to not do that with their will, because people are really want to change their will once they're drafted. But the tangible personal property list gives you something that you can change your mind on.
Sure. And one last document or thing to think about is disposition of remains.
Right. We, in Montana, we have a specific statutory setup that says who gets to control your remains after you're dead. This can lead to some very sad situations. We've seen situations where someone died, their parent didn't get to say goodbye to them because their grandchild was the one who controlled the remains. So one way to avoid that is to leave a specific, either a provision in your will or a separate piece of paper that says, this is how I want my remains to be disposed of, this is who I want in charge of it. You can leave it with funeral instructions. I would say you can do that and put it all with your will so your family has sort of a complete package. But understand that if you don't do that, your family, even if you've said, I want to be cremated, your family can say, no, we're not going to cremate you.
Thanks, Susan. So many important things to think about. If you are looking into making any of these decisions and are looking for resources, you can try our website, which we're going to put up on the screen for you. All of the forms are available on the site and more information about each of the documents. You can also reach out to our office, and our number is going to be up on the bottom of the screen, and give me a call. We want to make sure that you give that information a good, thorough thought process and have answers to all of your questions answered. So make sure you give me a call if you have any questions. Thank you for staying tuned to Aging Horizons.
Special thanks to the Department of Public Health and Human Services for their continued support. Hosts on Aging Horizons are program specialists at the Montana Office on Aging. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions. For more information about Aging Horizons, call the Department of Public Health and Human Services toll-free at 800-332-2272.